Hello, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to the Energy Star Portfolio Manager webinar presented by the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina in partnership with the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Energy Star program. I'm David Tucker. I'm a project director here at the EFC in Chapel Hill. And this webinar is an outgrowth of our ongoing Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, which is funded through a grant from the U.S. EPA. Very glad that all of you can join us here today. I see people are still dialing in as we speak. We do have 42 people pre-registered for this webinar. The webinar will last for 1.5 hours, and there will be some time for your questions during and at the end of the webinar. I'll say more about that in a moment. Once the webinar ends, you will be emailed a link to a very brief survey, 5 to 10 minutes to complete it. Your feedback is very important to us, as we'll use it to help us improve future webinars. So thank you very much in advance for filling out the survey. I'll also put the link to that survey up on the screen at the end in case you want to do it right away. A few technical details before we get started to help you navigate this webinar. All participants will be muted, so if you have any questions, please type them into the questions box on your screen. Now, that questions box should be appearing as part of a control panel on the right of your screen. That control panel can be enlarged or minimized with that little red arrow that you see there. And the questions box is somewhat small, so if you click on the little curvy arrow in the upper right-hand portion of the questions box, you can undock it from the rest of the control panel and you can enlarge it, make it easier for you to see it and type your questions in. And yours truly will be monitoring those questions during the webinar, and I'll be relaying them to our expert speakers from our panel, who I'll be introducing in just a moment. For those of you who are familiar with GoToWebinar, the raise your hand function or the speak into the mic function, we will not be using that during this webinar. But when you do type a question into your questions box, please state your name and your water system name if you're representing a water system, which will help us to respond to you. We may not have time to answer all questions today. If not, we will have our presenters answer as many as possible, and we will follow up with the rest of you in the coming days. This webinar is being recorded, so it can be used again in the future, and we'll also be sharing the slides from the presentation as well as the link to the recording with you in the coming week. So with that, we'll move beyond the logistics. I'll just say a few words about myself here before moving on to our expert panel. I work with the Environmental Finance Center here at UNC-Chapel Hill, and our mission is that we are dedicated to enhancing the ability of governments and other organizations to provide environmental programs and services in ways that are fair, effective, and financially sustainable. We believe that how you pay for it matters. We work across a variety of different subject areas, including this one on drinking water and wastewater. We also work with energy and sustainability, solid waste management, stormwater, and so on, as you can see on the screen. As I mentioned a moment ago, the project that is funding this webinar is the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. It's under a cooperative agreement with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. We, in conjunction with 9 other environmental finance centers around the country, have been providing training and technical assistance through in-person workshops and webinars across all 50 states and all 5 territories in 7 different grant areas that you can see on your screen there. And while today we're dealing with energy management for water systems, if you would like to receive direct technical assistance in any of these grant areas, you can go to the link you see on the bottom of this slide and enter your request there, and we will get back to you as soon as we can. I wanted to say a few words about the Energy Star program, again, before introducing our expert speakers. Energy Star program is a voluntary program through the U.S. EPA to help businesses and individuals save money and protect our climate through superior energy efficiency. I have had some work myself, some connection with Energy Star through this project, and also through a previous job I had where I was working for the Environmental Defense Fund, and we were helping buildings, helping government organizations to get their buildings more energy efficient. And the resources like Portfolio Manager that were provided through Energy Star were very helpful to us. There are over 70,000 Portfolio Managers already, Portfolio Manager users already, who measure energy performance of their buildings and plants for more than 320,000 properties. These properties are benchmarked continuously. If they're benchmarked continuously, they will show a savings trend as you put your energy management projects into work in those facilities. And an EPA study has shown that continuous benchmarking can help your properties realize at least a 7% average energy savings. On the agenda for today, we will have an introduction to Energy Star and Portfolio Manager from Laura Dufresne of the Cadmus Group. Laura is a contractor to the EPA for the Energy Star program. She'll then be joined afterwards by her colleague Kudret Utabe, also with Cadmus Group, for a live demonstration of Portfolio Manager for water and wastewater plants. Portfolio Manager was redesigned and improved to make it more user-friendly back in July of this year, so hopefully you will all find this very useful. And finally, we'll move on to Neil Zobler, who works for the Catalyst Financial Group, also a contractor to the EPA for the Energy Star program, who will be demonstrating Energy Star's cash flow opportunity calculator, a way to take some of the project economics that some of you may have gone over with us in some of our in-person workshops earlier this year, and have a handy-dandy tool to guide you through inputting that data and getting some results out. And then at the end, we'll have a little more time for questions and answers and final business. Moving right along, the objectives are to become familiar with the features and benefits of Energy Star Portfolio Manager tool. Also in this webinar, you'll learn how to create your own Portfolio Manager account, which is of course free to you to do that, and to add new properties and enter utility data. You will find out how to apply, like I was saying a moment ago, the cash flow opportunity calculator, and you'll be able to pose your questions to the Energy Star experts. This is a map of those of you who registered to attend the webinar today, and I'm very happy to see there are attendees from various places around the country. And I'm going to ask just a couple of quick icebreaker questions here of all of you to help us presenters get to know better who you are, who are on the webinar now. So first, you should be seeing a question on your screen asking you what you do for your water system, if indeed you work for a water system, what your position is there. So if you can click your votes, we'll get those in the next few seconds here, and then I'll be able to display the results of that back to you on the screen. We'll have one other polling question after this, and then I'm going to turn it over to the Energy Star experts to tell you all about Portfolio Manager. All right, so I think that is enough time for folks to vote there. And it looks like we have most of you in the other category, also a goodly number of water system managers and operators, no elected officials today. Also, we are curious to know if you have ever used Energy Star's Portfolio Manager prior to today. So if you have, please vote yes there. Otherwise, obviously, no. And we'll give you a few moments to record your votes there and see what the answers are. Okay. We'll give this just a few more seconds before I close this out and show you all the results. All right, and here we go. It looks like a few of you have used Energy Star before. Sorry, there you go. But most of you have not. Most of you have not. So that's good to know. And I seem to have gone on to the wrong slide here. However, now is the time to turn you over to Laura Dufresne of the Cadmus Group. And Laura, I'm going to change the presenter to you right now so you can take it from here.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. We're going to be showing you how to benchmark water and wastewater systems in Portfolio Manager, as David mentioned. I'm going to be giving you an overview of Portfolio Manager, and then we'll be jumping into a live demonstration of the tool where we will actually benchmark a plant. Then we'll be doing just a couple quick case studies at the end before turning it over to Neil Zobler to show you the cash flow opportunity calculator. Okay, just a couple of statistics here. Drinking water and wastewater services combined in the U.S. account for about 3 to 4% of total national energy consumption. Those services actually produce more than 45 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions every year. Drinking water and wastewater plants are also typically the largest energy consumers of municipal governments, accounting for typically 30 to 40% of total energy consumed. This varies, but that's kind of a typical figure that we found. And experts believe that energy use and costs for these services will only increase in the future. You know, as an example, energy as a percent of operating costs for drinking water systems is expected to increase by 20% over the next 15 years due to population growth and also tightening of drinking water regulations. The EPA has found that significant energy savings are available through optimization and some equipment modifications, including things like replacing inefficient pumping systems, installing premium efficiency motors using VFDs, and at wastewater treatment plants, upgrading aeration systems. Plants can also reduce energy costs by using on-site clean energy generation and recovery, things like solar and wind. At wastewater treatment plants, methane capture and reuse is something a lot of plants are doing. And using a combination of approaches, there are some plants out there that have actually achieved zero net energy production, meaning they produce as much power as they consume over the course of a year. One that's been talked about a lot in the literature is the Strass wastewater treatment plant in Austria. They've been a zero net energy system for several years now. They convert biogas to electricity. They maximize organic transfer in their digesters. They have lots of innovative methods. Another wastewater treatment plant in New York, the Johnson Gloversville plant, they produce more than 90% of their electricity needs back in 2012. Okay, how can water and wastewater utilities get involved in the energy conservation game? Now, Energy Star provides multiple pathways for water systems to follow, water and wastewater systems to follow, to either engage in energy efficiency efforts for the first time, or if you already have a program, to step up your program. This is a good website there to start. It has links to a lot of different programs, and we'll be showing you that soon during the live demonstration portion. Okay, EPA has developed this best practice approach to energy management. Basically, you make a commitment, then you assess where you are and set your goals, make a plan, and put that plan in motion. As you evaluate progress and recognize achievement, you start the plan anew. And assessing performance and evaluating progress are areas where Energy Star can help with Portfolio Manager. Okay, so let's talk about benchmarking, the topic of today's webinar. So what is benchmarking? Basically, it's establishing a point of reference, in our case, energy consumption, from which to make comparisons. So if we're undertaking an energy conservation program for the first time, we first want to establish an energy consumption baseline so that we can track our improvements over time. And David mentioned this, I think, during the intro portion, but a recent EPA analysis of 30,000 buildings that consistently tracked energy consumption using Portfolio Manager over 3 years, they saw an average 7% improvement and a 6-point improvement in their score. And there's a link there if you're interested in seeing more information on this study. So just by benchmarking, tracking your energy use, that's the first step really in energy efficiency. The EPA's Energy Star measurement and tracking tool, Portfolio Manager, is a free, online, secure resource for benchmarking all different kinds of properties. Basically, it enables you to track energy intensity, energy costs, greenhouse gas emissions, and also monitor changes in your buildings and plants over time. Basically, both a management tool and a metrics calculator. We'll talk about management tool on this screen. It can be used to assess energy and water consumption for your whole property, track changes over time, track green power purchases, share and report data with others, and also create custom reports. As a metrics calculator, the new Portfolio Manager will help organize and inform your energy management plan. The reports can easily be generated for energy and water consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and also an Energy Star score. So an energy performance scoring system has been available in Portfolio Manager for wastewater treatment plants since October of 2007. So Portfolio Manager does provide a way for wastewater treatment plants to get a score of 1 to 100. I'm going to try to briefly talk about where that score came from. Essentially, it was based on a survey that was done by the Water Research Foundation. They mailed the surveys out to a statistically representative group of wastewater and water treatment plants. When they got the data back, they analyzed it to see which parameters were key, which parameters affected energy use, and then they developed a regression equation to look at basically what's your predicted energy use per flow. And so what does this mean? What does the score mean? Say your plant gets an energy performance score of 50, then your plant performs better than 50% of all similar wastewater facilities nationwide. If you get a score of 75, then your plant is performing better than 75% of all similar wastewater treatment plants nationwide. And there's a lot of detail on how this score came about that's on the Energy Star website. Now for drinking water plants, the same survey was done for drinking water plants, but EPA found that there were too many variables in the data, particularly related to the drinking water distribution, to develop a score. Energy use of drinking water systems really depends a lot on topography and the layout of the distribution system, so it was really difficult to normalize. So instead, users of Portfolio Manager can compare their energy use per flow to the national median. So we'll show you how to do this during the live demonstration portion. So wastewater treatment plants can get the score, and then for drinking water systems, you can compare your data to the national median. That can kind of tell you where you fall in terms of how much energy you use per flow that you treat at your facility. Okay, there are many ways you can access energy performance metrics using Portfolio Manager. This is just a long list here of the different performance metrics you can pull out of the tool. You can look at your medium source or site energy use efficiency. You can look at the weather normalized data. We'll be talking about these more during the live demonstration portion. You can also look at, you can get data on the greenhouse gas emissions that your plant basically produces based on the energy that you use at your plant. And also you can get performance metrics out of the system. All right, it is time to move on to the live demonstration portion. Just checking to see if there are any questions. I don't really see any yet, so we'll move on. We'll take breaks throughout to see if to see if you have any questions on the live demonstration tool. All right now I've got the home page to EnergyStar.gov. Can everyone, hopefully everybody can see that here, and I actually apologize, I have the buildings and plants on there. Let's see if we can get, there we go. That's what the home page looks like. There is EnergyStar.gov. This is the home page to all of Energy Star. Basically, you'll find links here to many things. You can look at energy efficient products, energy savings at home. There are lots of links here. Energy guidance on energy efficient new homes, and then buildings and plants. And drinking water and wastewater systems are covered under buildings and plants. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. All right, these are also great links along this bar here. There are great links to information on Energy Star and energy efficiency. This first link here, you can find information for facility owners and managers on new construction, management, existing buildings, things like that. This link for service providers provides information on how manufacturers can get Energy Star certified. This link provides information for Energy Star administrators, including state and local governments. And then tools and resources provides a lot of information on Energy Star. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Here are the many tools and resources. And if you click down, you'll see there are several publications on energy management guidance. There are financial resources, including our cash flow opportunity calculator is the first link right here. And there's also a number of resources on Portfolio Manager. If you view them all, there's a very long list of resources for Portfolio Manager here. And the last link on this buildings and plants page is training. You can access, if you go to this site, you can access the slides from all of the previous Energy Star webinars, and you can also go to the training training center for a schedule of upcoming webinars. These webinars are free. You just need to register through the web page, and you can log on to any number of webinars on Energy Star. Okay, now we're going to move on to benchmarking through Portfolio Manager. You can get to this page here by typing in energystar.gov/benchmark, or you can access it through buildings and plants, facility owners and managers, and existing buildings. So what we're going to do next for this live demonstration portion is first I'm going to show you how to create an account through Portfolio Manager. Next, we're going to walk through how to add a property, which in our case will be today, which will be a wastewater treatment plant. Second, we're going to go through how to enter energy data and plant flow data into your account. And lastly, we're going to talk about how to view the results by creating a custom report. So we'll be going through each of those four things today. So the first thing you have to do when you want to start using Portfolio Manager, the very first thing is create an account. So you would click on the sign up button, and it would take you to this page here. So it's only really a little more than a page of information, some questions at the end. First thing you do is pick a username, and we recommend that you pick this carefully, that you use something that resonates with your organization. Once you set the username, you won't be able to change that. And then you go ahead and select your password. It gives you guidance right here on what you need to have in that password. Then you provide basic information about yourself, your name, your email, your address, pretty basic things like that. Then you move down the page and enter information about your organization. Organization name in terms of your primary service. You can see here there is drinking water treatment and distribution if you're a drinking water treatment system. And down at the bottom is wastewater treatment. So you would probably enter one of those two. And they just have a couple questions here. If your organization, if you're already an Energy Star partner, you can specify that. And this last question is if you're going to be using web services to develop specific tools to exchange data The answer is probably no if you're a first-time user and you're a drinking water system, but Energy Star does provide ability for users to actually write programs to exchange data. So moving on down, you can specify whether or not other people can search for you and send you a connection request in Portfolio Manager. Any information that you put in Portfolio Manager is secure. No one can see it. But Portfolio Manager does have a sharing function where you can identify other users and you can share data with them. So, and this question here asks whether or not your name will be available for other users to find you and request that you share data or share data with you. And the last part here is just a couple of security questions. So that's basically it. You complete this page and you have created an account with Portfolio Manager. See if there are any questions. Nope. So we're going to go ahead and do
Laura,
yep.
Well, I'm sorry, there is one question from
Sure.
Bill about is there a tool available specific to water treatment plants? I think he means drinking water treatment plants as opposed to
Sure.
wastewater treatment plants.
Sure, sure. You know, it's the same tool for both drinking water and wastewater treatment plants. We have planned on going through the wastewater treatment plants because it requires a little more data and provides a score. But the basic methods for entering data and setting up a property are the same for wastewater treatment plants and drinking water treatment plants both. So you can use the system for either. It's just that right now EPA does actually give a score of 1 to 100 from the wastewater treatment plants, but not for the drinking water treatment plants. But we'll go through how, and I'll talk about the similarities to drinking water as we go through, and we'll talk about how you can assess your energy use for the drinking water plants, even though there's no score. That's a good question. Yeah, they are the same. You know that when EPA did that survey, they I think were hopeful of doing a score for drinking water plants, but they just weren't. The data just didn't lend itself to having you know, similar energy uses per flow just based on the layout of the distribution system. They were so varied. But thank you, good questions. So please, you know, keep on asking. It's a lot of information. So yeah, please send a question to the chat box, and David, let me know if I missed them, and we can stop and go back. All right. So after we've created an account. So now I'm going to go ahead and log on to my account. I've already created. I have some data in there. So here is the home page that you will get to when you create an account in Portfolio Manager. I've already got some properties and some data in here, but essentially you will come to this page and you will have these five tabs for your entire portfolio that you can start with. Basically, my portfolio shows you all your properties, lets you know if you have any notifications, shows you some trends there if you've got any data. Sharing is where you can share property data with other Portfolio Manager users. One important thing I wanted to mention, if you decide you do want to share your data with another user in Portfolio Manager, you need to add that other user as a contact first. So you would actually click, if you decide you would like to use the sharing function, you have to click on the contacts and add a contact. And actually that allows you to search for contacts that already have accounts in Portfolio Manager. So you add a contact first, and then you can begin the sharing process. The next tab is planning. In this tab here, you can set targets for your plants, and you can see where you are meeting those targets. The reporting function, we'll talk about that at the end of this live demonstration portion. It gives you some report templates, and also it's where you create a custom report. The last tab here is recognition. Some buildings can get Energy Star certified. EPA is not currently certifying water or wastewater treatment plants, so you probably wouldn't be using that tab. So we'll move back to the My Portfolio page here, and we'll go ahead and get started. So once you set up your account and you have a portfolio, basically the first thing that you would be doing is adding a property. So we're going to go ahead and add a property through this webinar. So you click on the link for Add a Property. And the first thing you do is answer some very basic questions about your property. So you select a primary function. We're going to go ahead and use, under utility, we're going to go ahead and use a wastewater treatment plant, but you can also select drinking water treatment and distribution. Your property's buildings. Is your property part of another building, a single building, or multiple buildings? You know, a lot of drinking water and wastewater plants will have multiple buildings on site, but this question is really for things like campuses and things like that. Since our metric that we're looking at is energy use per flow, generally you probably want to select one building just to make things simple there. And then the last question is your property's construction status. In addition to benchmarking an existing plant, you can actually do a design project through Portfolio Manager. You can use it to evaluate energy efficiency of a project. But we're going to go ahead and select existing for existing plant. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and click Get Started. And here's where you're asked to input basic information about your plant. We're going to call this the UNC wastewater treatment plant. And country, United States, street address. I looked up online and found the address for the visitor center at Chapel Hill. Talking with David earlier, it's very unlikely that they would place a wastewater treatment plant next to the visitor center, but this is all hypothetical, so I'll go ahead and just keep going with that. There we go. Year built. This question for a drinking water plant or wastewater treatment plant basically means the year of your latest big upgrade. You know, if your plant was built in the 30s, but you added some new processes, different processes, say in 1999, you can go ahead and add that. That's what we recommend. The next one is the gross floor area. Now, it's not a typical value that's used to assess performance for water and wastewater plants, but it's required as a basic system input. This gross floor area for drinking water plants and wastewater plants should be the administrative area and also industrial area, not any outdoor space. They're just your indoor space. We're going to assume that this facility's got a pretty small building that houses all of the process equipment and some office space. Lastly is occupancy. Once again, this is more geared towards buildings, but if your plant is basically being manned as it's supposed to be, it's basically being run as it was planned out, you can go ahead and do 100% for occupancy. If currently you have some open administrative space that you're planning on filling, you can use an estimate there. But if your plant is pretty much run and manned as it's supposed to be, you can enter 100%. And there are a couple of extra questions at the end. This one is empty. They really didn't identify anything specific for drinking water and wastewater plants and parking areas here. My property does include administrative office space, so we can go ahead and check that one. Okay, so we'll continue on. So there's our basic information on our plant that we just entered. Now the next set of information we need to enter is basically to get our score. It tells Portfolio Manager something about the wastewater treatment plant so you can get the score. Drinking water plants will not have this page. So we'll just fill this out pretty quickly for a wastewater plant. Let's say it has a 2 MGD design flow rate, let's say 250 BOD, effluent BOD, pretty good at 20. Does it have fixed film trickling filtration process? No, that was identified in the survey as a key factor that influenced energy use. And so was nutrient removal, whether or not the plant had nutrient removal, and say we do some basic nitrogen removal at the plant, nitrification, denitrification. All right, so that's it here. So we're going to add our property. So there it is, the UNC Wastewater Treatment Plant 1. We have added the property. And if you go to your portfolio homepage, now you can see down here we have the UNC Wastewater Treatment Plant 1. That's my fourth plant in my portfolio. Now let's go ahead and click on the plant, and I'll show you basically the home page for the plant. It's got some similar tabs up here for sharing, planning, reporting, and recognition, similar to the whole portfolio, but this is just for your treatment plant. Basically, we're going to move on to our next step at this point, and we're going to add our energy and flow data. So basically, to get an accurate picture of your plant's performance, you need to enter data on energy use and flow that you treat at your plant. Energy Star does allow you to track potable water use at the plant, but it's not required for benchmarking. We're not going to enter it today. We're going to focus on energy and plant flow. All right, so let's go ahead and add an energy meter. So we've added our plant, we've added our property, and now we're going to add our data by adding an energy meter. The first step here. So let's set up our meters. So source of our property's energy. Say that we have a pretty simple plant that runs just on electric power, and it gives us a choice here whether or not we purchase it from the grid or we generate it on site. Say that we purchase it from the grid. How many meters do we have? We're just going to keep things simple and do one electric meter that supplies our plant. Our plant flow meter, we're going to say we've just got one plant flow meter that measures effluent flow coming out of our plant. And then we're also just going to go ahead and set up our potable water usage, but we're not going to put in data for this. But you can track potable water usage at your plant, look at how much water you're using, and also work on some efficiency measures for that as well. Okay, so we've set up our meters. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, our next page brings us to a summary page for our meters. It's here we need to enter some required information about the meters. You see here where it's empty for units and the date the meter became active. We need to click on each meter and add that information. For units, let's say we do kilowatt hours for the electric, and the date the meter became active, let's say, we're going to say 1/1/2011. That's the date we're going to enter some data for that meter. For the potable water meter, say we measure it in gallons, became active at the same date. And for the flow meter, say we track that in million gallons per day, and we're going to put the same date in. So this is where we're characterizing our meters here. What units do we use, and when did they become active? All right, we have entered them successfully. So we can start entering data at this point, but I think we're going to go back and do that later. You can set up all your meters and start entering your data, or you can set them up and come back at any point in time and add data for any of your meters, for your energy meters, potable water, or flow meters. But for right now, we're going to finish the meter setup and go to the next screen, which is configuring the meters. We're almost done with the meters. Just say congratulations, you've successfully added them, but now we need to go ahead and configure them. So energy meters, we're going to say that this electric grid meter accounts for the total energy consumption for this property. Same with our potable water meter. And then our plant flow meter, it applies to, it says building use here, but it's the only choice, and it's the same as plant use for this purpose. So we have done configuring our meters, and we're going to apply our selections. And we're back to the home page. So we're back to the home page for our wastewater treatment plant. Now before we actually add the data, I want to just stop for a moment and see if there are any questions. David?
Laura, that's perfect timing. We have a question from Thomas, who is asking, if you have a combination of electricity from the grid and your own solar, how is this entered into the system?
That is a great question. Energy Star does allow you to add multiple meters. So you would have a meter for your electricity, and you would have a separate meter for your solar. And when you configure those meters, you would say that the solar is not including the consumption. That you can track that meter, but it's not part of your energy consumption. Did I answer that correctly?
Actually, Laura, with solar and wind, they can add a separate meter, and both of them could be included in the calculations. If the plant is selling some electricity back to the grid, we also have a separate field for those monthly sold data points. So they will be included in the calculations for sure. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think so. So, yeah. So it really allows you to add multiple meters, to configure those meters as used from the grid or solar or wind, and to track that exactly. And the tool is very flexible in letting you configure multiple meters and multiple uses. So absolutely, that was a good question. All right, so back to our plant homepage there. We've got our meters, so we've added our meters, but we don't have any data with them yet. So here are our 3 meters. So when you click on the meters tab here, it gives you a summary of those meters. We don't have any recent bill data, the most recent bill date. So our next step is to add our data. So in this box here, you select View, Add Bills. You can also edit your basic meter information at any time or delete a meter. But we're going to add another meter at any time during this process. So once you set up your meters, you have a lot of flexibility to add more and edit the information. So we're going to go ahead to View, Add Bills. So this is our home page on Manage Bills, or meter entries for our electric grid meter. And there are 2 ways that you can enter data into Portfolio Manager for your meter. You can enter it by hand, by adding an entry. You can do the start date, say 1/1/2011 to 1/31. You can put in your monthly energy use bills, and say you use 90,000 kilowatt hours, and just roughly say it was 10 cents. So you can do it in this way. You can add it by hand. You can add as many rows as you want for this meter. Or the other way, other thing you can do is you can use the spreadsheet template, and that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try uploading some data I've already populated in a spreadsheet. We're going to delete this meter so we don't have any overlap. I'm sorry, not the meter. We're going to delete the entry so we don't have any overlap. And we're going to go ahead and try using the spreadsheet template. So I'm just going to open the spreadsheet template to show you what it looks like, and then I'm going to browse and upload one I've already prepared. So the spreadsheet template looks like this. It's just a very basic Excel spreadsheet with the column headings are the same as the headings in the table on the web page. One important thing is that all of the columns need to be filled in. This column here is for estimated value. Is it an estimated value, true or false? If you have actual data from your electricity bills, this would be false. But to upload the spreadsheet, you need to have information in all of the columns. So that's what this looks like. And we're going to go ahead and upload one that I have already developed for today from my desktop. So let's go ahead and UNC wastewater treatment plant energy use. And see if this works. There you go. So it uploaded all of our data. I basically did 2 years of energy use data at this treatment plant. This is made up data for like a typical 1 MGD plant. It's actually it shows up as a pretty good energy performer. But this is essentially what it'll look like. After you upload it, you need to save. You get a nice green box here saying congratulations, you successfully updated your bills. And that is it. And if you want to see all of your data, you need to look at the display years here. You can see 1 year, you can see 2 years, you can see all years of data. So we just uploaded our data from the spreadsheet, and we are finished with that meter. We've uploaded 2 years of electricity use data for that meter. And this process is the same, exactly the same for a drinking water plant. You could upload energy use data for your meter. We're going to close every time you close, it asks you if you're sure you want to close and if you have saved your changes. So just press continue. Okay, so we've got data in for our energy meter. Our next step is to get data uploaded for our plant flow rate meter. We're going to view add bills here. We're going to do the same thing where we're going to use the template, a pre-populated template. There we go. We have data here. One thing on the flow information, there is a column here for cost. I put zeros in for now. You can track information. You can track in Portfolio Manager the cost of your operations cost or your cost of producing that drinking water or treating that wastewater, but it's not required for energy benchmarking. There's just a place in here if you want to track your cost information for electricity. Neither cost information is not required for benchmarking, but it will, might be helpful as you look at potential energy improvements. Okay, so we're going to save. Mm-hmm.
Laura, excuse me for interrupting you. We have a comment and a question.
Sure.
The question is, if you're using the upload spreadsheet function, do you have to have Excel installed, Microsoft Excel installed on your computer to be able to do that?
I think the answer is yes, although it's an older version of Excel. I don't think you need the newer version. Can you confirm? I think it is required.
Well, this is certainly an interesting question. After 12 years, first time I'm receiving a question like this. I have not tried it. My guess is that if you prepare the spreadsheet, meaning download it in another computer, enter the data, and bring it back to the computer with no Excel, I'm guessing it could work during the upload process, but I would like to try it with a computer with no Excel.
Okay, so we can check into that.
That we should take a note, and I'll try to test it with a computer and get back to you.
Thank you, Kudret. And Laura, we have one comment from the field from Patrick, who says that they have a wastewater treatment plant which produces reclaimed water for beneficial use by their customers. The reclaimed water pumps increase the energy use at their facility, which makes it appear that their plant is more energy intensive than other similar plants. And he's asserting that he would like to see Energy Star Portfolio Manager reflect this difference between these kinds of plants.
And I definitely understand that the comment, and I've definitely heard similar things from wastewater and drinking water plant managers. That there are definitely situations where, especially on the wastewater side, the score will look, unusually low because of a situation like that, because of an advanced treatment. There's certainly some other solid management issues that I've heard about as well. EPA is looking at the score. They're going to be looking at the score over the next several years, but regardless of what the absolute number is, I think one of the things that they want users to focus on is the improvement over a baseline. Even though the score may look low, you can still show improvement over a baseline for energy use. You can still get data out of the system in terms of how much greenhouse gas emissions and things like that. But I know that's a concern out there. There's certainly processes that are very energy efficient for very valid reasons where a score would look unusually low. So I do appreciate that. I know EPA is continuing to look at that score and determine if they're going to refine it, because things are always changing out in the wastewater and drinking water world. So that is a good comment. All right. Well, speaking of score, you can see there's a score for our hypothetical plant at the visitor center at the top of this page here. So this hypothetical plant, I must have given it pretty low energy use compared to other plants because it's got a pretty high score. I set the baseline as 2011, and the current year is 2012. You can do that in your goals. You can set baselines and targets in your goals. So I went ahead and set the baseline as 2011, and the current is 2012. And this plant is doing, it's using less energy than 80% of the plants of a similar type. And the only two things that EPA considers in this tool right now are fixed film, the trickling filters, and whether or not there's nutrient removal. So, but basically, those are the basic steps. We have benchmarked a plant, a wastewater treatment plant, using Portfolio Manager. We did the upload spreadsheet tool, but I've entered the data by hand. It takes, if you're looking at 2 years of data monthly, it takes anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes to get that in there. If you've tracked it, if you've already got it managed in a spreadsheet, then it is a lot easier. You can just put that into the template and upload it. So, you have to go through the meter configuration step, but then once you enter your data, it's pretty quick. All right, so our next step, we've added a property, we've added all our data, our electricity and our flow data. Our next step is to view our results, to look at the different metrics for results. For wastewater treatment plants, you do have a score in the upper right side. For drinking water plants, the value, let me show you the value that it gives you for drinking water plants. Right now, it currently shows you a weather normalized energy use per square footage, which is really not the metric that you want for drinking water plants. I know EPA is aware of this and is working on fixing a number of things with the tool. Hopefully that'll change to kBTU per gallon per day, which is the metric that we want to use to look at energy use per flow across different drinking water plants. But currently, right now, it does show the energy use per square foot. But I'm going to go back now and talk about, so our next step is to talk about the reporting function. I think that should pretty much wrap us up today. So the reporting function in Portfolio Manager offers a variety of reports and graphics to help you share and evaluate your performance metrics. There's a ton of flexibility in this reporting tool. Right now, there is not a template specific for water and wastewater systems, so we've created a couple new templates. I'm going to walk you through the process. It's very easy. You can select whatever performance metrics you want for your plant. Basically, you would click on Create a Template, and all you need to do is name your template. Example, give the time frame for your template. Since I've entered 2 years of data, I like to compare 2 years. You give the last. We're going to compare 2011 with 2012. And select properties to include. Let's go ahead and do multiple properties. Let's go ahead and select the one we just added, our UNC wastewater treatment plant, and let's do our test drinking water plant. Okay, and then we save our template. So we've created a new template. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I missed a step there. I missed an important step there. So I go back to Edit Template. My apologies. One of the most important steps, number 4 here, is to select information and metrics to include. Now here's where you can select a wide variety of metrics to look at. You can, here's your energy performance metrics. They have them specific to water and wastewater. You can see here, % better than the national median water and wastewater. One thing I wanted to mention when you're looking at results, something you may or may not know about, there are 2 types of energy use intensity. You'll see this a lot. There's site energy use intensity and there's source energy use intensity. Essentially, site energy is the amount of heat and electricity consumed on your property as reflected in your bills. Now, source energy represents the total amount of raw fuel that is required to operate your property. So for electricity especially, it incorporates transmission, delivery, and production losses. So your source energy use intensity is always going to be, if you have electricity, it's going to be bigger than your site energy use intensity. But this gives you an idea of how much, which is a pretty powerful thing. It lets you know, well, this is what I use on site, but this is really what it takes. This is how much energy it takes to actually to truly run my facility based on getting the electricity delivered to my plant. So we can look at % better than the national median for water and wastewater, We can look at our water and wastewater site and source energy use intensity, kBTU per gallons per day. We can look at weather normalized, which will normalize it across the country for different weather conditions. We can look at that. So we have a lot of great things we can look at in this energy performance metrics. We can look at our greenhouse gas emissions. We can look at total direct wastewater direct greenhouse gas emissions intensity. We can look at direct emissions. You can look at a number of different, all sorts of different metrics here. So we've selected 10 at this point for our template. So we're going to go ahead and save it. And then our next steps are to generate a new report. So our report is being generated. If we scroll down, we've got a report we generated today, just a couple seconds ago, and we're going to. You can either view the current report here, or you can download it in Excel. I'm just going to go ahead and open it. And click here. So this is what. Apologize if I'm clicking too fast, but this is what. Just a sample of a couple metrics you can use. We've got our wastewater treatment plant, and then we've got our drinking water plant that we just added here. So we looked at percent better than the national median for energy use intensity. Both these plants are doing really well. It's just giving us 0 for these. I'll have to go back and look at that. It may just be fractions, I think, that aren't showing up. But there's a lot of different. Let me go ahead and show you a report that we already generated with some really good metrics from my desktop. But there's a lot of flexibility here. You can look at a lot of different metrics. You can calculate a number of different things. I think EPA is looking at doing a template for water, wastewater. That's a possibility. Kudret, have you heard anything about that?
Yes, definitely. They will consider that, but I don't know about any timelines yet.
The timing, right. So let me go ahead and just show you the report I generated for the test. So this one has a lot of metrics. I did a two-year comparison of 2012 versus 2011 with a number of different metrics. The shaded rows and cells are just basic information. And then we did Energy Star score, percent better than national median, site and source energy use intensity. So, and once you get this data, you can put it into whatever format you like. So it's very flexible. You can view it from the screen, or you can go ahead and download it in Excel. So that basically closes our live demonstration portion at 3:30. So I'm going to quickly go through the rest of the slides here. When you get the slide set, we have a lot of screenshots that show you basically all the steps I went through. So the slides will have all of the screenshots there. So if you need to refer back to them, they're embedded in the slides. So last couple quick things. This graphic was put together by an EPA expert in Region 1, Jason Turgeon. He collected some data from some very similarly sized plants just to show you the range in energy required to operate these plants and cost. So, we know there's a very wide range of energy use for treatment plants. Some of it, just based on how they're configured, but oftentimes there are some energy efficiencies that we can build in. This is a case study from Burlington, Vermont. They replaced one of their blowers with a turbo blower and used the new dissolved oxygen probe. One of the reasons we wanted to show this because the project cost was $56,000, but they were able to get a local electric utility rebate of $21,000. So it really made it economical for them. They had a short payback period for this project. And lastly, this is another medium-sized wastewater treatment plant in Tennessee, in Bartlett, Tennessee. They used a optical dissolved oxygen sensor and then also VFD control on their aerators of their oxidation ditches. Once again, pretty inexpensive project. They saw very large energy savings that first year and had a low payback. So, some of these improvements get you energy savings, get you pretty big energy savings that can pay for themselves within only a couple of years. And then after that, it's just extra money, in your operating budget. Put up the last slide for questions here, and we'll turn things over to Neil. I know I've gone a little bit over. I apologize. David, do you want to go ahead and move it on to Neil pretty quickly, and we'll take some questions at the end?
Sure. I'll be happy to switch things over to Neil now. Neil Zobler is going to present to all of you now about the cash flow opportunity calculator tool that the Energy Star program has developed. And let's see. All right, and I think your screen is on for us now, Neil, so take her away.
Great. Well, thank you very much. And Laura, thank you for that great presentation. Every time I hear it, I always learn something. We're going to go from great detail as relating to water wastewater treatment energy savings into a more conceptual presentation talking about financing. And we just did an article with Buildings Magazine and heard that 44% of energy efficiency projects don't move forward because of the concern about first cost and people don't have the money. So this presentation really talks about how do you pay for and how do you fund some of these energy efficiency projects. We start with a concept statement, which if we were in a room together, I'd ask you all to read it out loud, because this is the underlying logic behind the presentation you're going to see today, which is we're paying for energy efficiency projects whether or not we do the projects. And what we mean by that is that there is considerable energy waste in everybody's utility bill. And if we're able to capture that waste and redirect that waste into covering the cost of financing the improvements, and if the cost of financing the improvements is less than the energy dollar saved, what you've got is a resulting net positive cash flow. And if you choose to do nothing, which this statement is alluding to, then you're paying for the projects even though you don't get the benefit of the actual implementation. Energy Star and EPA have two financial tools available online, and I know we're talking mostly with water wastewater people today, but I just wanted to suggest that there is a second tool that we're not going to be detailing today. It's the building upgrade value calculator. It deals very much with commercial real estate. Today, however, we're going to be talking about the cash flow opportunity calculator. And while this tool was originally developed by Cadmus and Catalyst to deal with the public sector, mostly municipals and schools, it today has been modified so that actually every market sector can use it. It works whether you're dealing with a single-family home, a portfolio of municipal buildings, or a water wastewater facility. And as I alluded to earlier, it deals with the cost of delay. What happens if you choose to not do the installation? Of course, you're paying for it and not getting the benefit. So we know this intuitively, but how do you quantify it? And this tool is a way to put numbers to that concept. And it does it by addressing three critical questions about energy efficiency projects. The first one is how much energy efficiency equipment can be purchased from the anticipated savings. The second one is, should we finance the purchase, which implies paying interest, or should we wait until the money is available to us in a future budget? And obviously that avoids paying interest, but which is a better financial decision? And this tool will help us draw that conclusion. The third question is a little more conceptual, and it deals with comparing interest rates, because in order to get the best deal, quote unquote, in financing, the best deal is rarely tied only to getting the best or lowest interest rate. It is tied into getting the best and quickest terms in order to implement the project. For every month that we wait, we wind up wasting energy and energy efficiency, which translates into dollars. So we need to, in order to determine the best deal, roll those energy inefficiencies into the decision-making process. So when you go online, you download this tool. This is the first screen that you will see, and I've got it tied into my desktop. And I just put a little flag there because this macro screen will not show up on my desktop, but you do need to enable the macros in order to get the calculator to work. And in this model, the macros are already engaged. So hopefully you all see the actual Excel spreadsheet that's on my desktop, same as the screenshot. You'll see on the bottom here we've got a number of tabs: instructions, data entry, investment values, cash flow, interest rates, and summary. We have very detailed instructions on how to use this spreadsheet, and if what I'm going through doesn't make sense, you can always, of course, download this tool and read through the instructions. And if that doesn't work, we're going to give you our contact information. We're always happy to respond and answer to any questions that you might have about this particular tool. But let's jump in to see how it works. Start with the data entry tab. And what you see here are a couple of different colors on the screen. Anything that's in yellow is asking for data input. We start with putting your organization name in here. We have a variety of analyses that we can use. User-generated, benchmark tools using EPA Portfolio Manager, green buildings, lead EBO&M, water wastewater treatment plants, by project and manufacturing facility. What we found is that depending on who's using the tool and the energy efficiency improvements that are being looked at, we try to create an easy way to migrate the project information into financial data. Obviously, energy efficiencies are calculated in terms and kilowatt hours saved, but finance people always look at dollars and cents. So we created this tool as a gateway into the CFO calculator. The purpose of this particular sheet is to come up with an estimated dollars saved from the energy efficiency project being used. Without going through the different types of analyses, I'm just going to focus on the water and wastewater treatment plants. And we have some sample values that we've dumped into this spreadsheet so that it facilitates walking through it conceptually. We allow here for you to enter the specific data as it relates to the project in hand. So you can label it treatment plant 1, 2, 3, 4. You can leave this parts of it blank. It will not affect the use of the tool. But in this particular case, if you want to include office space that you might have as part of the property, you can add that in the second space over here. Of course, million gallons per day is what we're going to be measuring for water wastewater treatment. For office buildings, we typically measure that in cost per square foot. So we'd have to kind of ignore that label on the top. At the end of the day, what we're looking for, and the takeaway from this particular spreadsheet, is to put in the actual energy use, enter in your estimated savings target. In this case, we're looking at saving 30% of our energy. That translates into $990,000. Any cell that is blue is a protected cell. It's going to be calculated based on the input that you provide. In this case, 33 billion gallons per day is the size of the plant, and the rest is pretty obvious. Again, the takeaway and the whole point of this particular tab is to come up with the number that I'm circling here, the total potential energy saved, $990,000. How you get to that number is really tied into the project that you're working on. But we're going to take that number and we're going to leverage it. And of course, people hear about leveraging all the time in the financial community. We're going to do exactly the same thing here. We're going to say, take that $990,000 and see how we can balloon that up and to cover the cost of financing the particular project. So I click on the next tab, the investment values. And as you can see here, we're pulling the data from the earlier tab onto the second tab. Annual energy costs, $3.3 million, potential savings, totals. And in order to calculate how much, oops, let me hide that again. That shouldn't have been seen because we have to make some additional inputs there first. in order to determine how much we can fund out of a particular project, we need to do some additional data inputs for financing. This is kind of like when you go to the bank in order to get a mortgage for your home, and the bank asks you for income data. How much income do you have? And they'll look at a formula to decide how big of a mortgage your personal income can support. And we're doing basically the same thing here. In order to come up with that number, we do need to add an interest rate. Well, for water, wastewater facilities, 5% sounds a little rich. So let's drop that down to something that's probably closer to market rate. And I'm going to say that's somewhere between 3 and 4%, but let me be conservative and put in 4. Financing terms. Public sector, you have access to all kinds of different financing mechanisms. 7 years might be short, especially if you're looking at doing some pretty comprehensive improvements within your facility. So we can probably take that out 12, 15 years. Again, let me be conservative and put in 10 years. So our working assumption here is we're going to obtain financing at 4% for a 10-year term, and we wish to use 90% of the energy savings to pay for the financing. We want to leave that 10% as a cushion in case something doesn't work out the way we'd like. So I'm going to calculate how much these energy savings will pay for, and I'm going to assume that we have a $100,000 rebate that would be available for this particular project if we do it within the acceptable time window. Push the green calculate button. As you can see here, $7,433,000. Well, let's assume that our project cost is $7,500,000, and if the energy savings has to pay for the entire project, we're going to be coming up short. We're short $66,000. That's not a big number, but there's an interesting conclusion that we can come to when we look at how do we push up the energy savings to cover a greater project cost. And typically most people jump to, well, we got to get a better interest rate. Well, that's certainly true. And I'd like to just walk through very quickly how to bump that number up, assuming that we need to pay for 100% of the cost from the savings. Well, the first way to do it is instead of taking 90%, we can take 95%. And now you can see we can cover $7.8 million. Let's drop that back down to 90. And if we jump up the years by another year, well, we'll get $8 million worth of projects covered out of that. Well, let's bump it back down to 10 years. What I want you to see is if we drop the interest rate by 25 basis points, which in the financial community is a fairly large number, see the impact on the project. Well, that just barely gets us to cover the cost of the project. While the other two variables showed substantial increases in the dollars that could be realized for project development, the interest rate was probably the least, has the least impact on the total number. Well, let me just put it back to 4, and we're going to leave it at $7,433,000. So the numbers on the bottom, actually the contribution, which is what the energy savings project will contribute, in this case is almost $225,000 per million gallons per day towards the project itself. Ignore the decimal point because this is really designed originally for cost per square foot, and we're getting into pieces of dollars. Of course, in these larger water wastewater projects, we should be thinking more in rounded numbers. So that 63 or 64 cents at the end is rather meaningless. We look at the simple payback. That's looking at the total cost plus the finance charge, and in this case, it's 7 years, 6 months as a simple payback on this particular project. So we see now that if we have a $7,433,000 project, we can pay for that with the energy savings. So let's take a look at the decision, which is should we do it now or should we wait? We wait until a future budget becomes available to us. And in order to do that, we're going to look at the actual cash flows that are being created from this particular project. So as you see, we pulled the project cost forward. 7 years, 6 months also pulled forward. interest rate 4%, 10 years. And now we get into an area which is kind of new, which is years postponed. What happens if we delay the installation of this project by 1 year? Well, a number of things change. First thing that changes is that the project cost may go up because we can't get the equipment that we need and the services that we need at the same cost. So in this case, put in 5%, but let's be more conservative and say, okay, it's going to go up 2.5% next year. Estimated.
Could you please zoom in a little bit? It's difficult to see the screen.
Oh, sure. Oops, that worked. Thank you for that, Kudret. So estimated energy cost savings next year. We've got it down here for 10%. I think that's going to be too rich. Let's assume that our energy costs will be flat. So we're not going to see any increase. Now at the end of next year, after year 2, let's say we expect the cost of energy to go up a little bit. So we've broken the forecasting into 2 pieces. What it's going to be next year, I think we have a pretty good feel for what it's going to be. And we don't really know what's going to happen after that. So it gives us the opportunity to plug in a future number. And I'm going to leave it at 2.5%. We also realize that when we're doing the energy efficiency project, and if the energy savings have to pay for 100% of the installed cost, we may not be able to capture 100% of the savings in year 1 due to the installation time and construction period that we're looking at for a particular project. For this example, we're assuming that we're going to be able to capture 75% of the energy savings forecasted in year 1 due to that construction period. Let me drop it back down so we can see a little bit more. And we're going to be comparing 2 different concepts. The fast track financing, which is let's finance it and do it now, versus waiting for cash. That's option B. And in order to determine which is a better financial decision, we're going to take the net present value of the cash flows from those 2 different decision points. And as you can see here in the details, and the details are the same for option A and option B, the only thing that changes obviously are the numbers. We're going to get $742,000 of savings in the first year. Why? Because 25%, and that's that 160K a year, we couldn't capture because of the installation scheduling. When we move into year 2, there's no change in energy costs. Obviously, as energy costs go up, our savings go up. And we are looking at, again, the consequence of those savings on an annual basis and on a cumulative cash flow basis. But when we do our net present value calculations, we always look at the annual savings. Now, we've added 1 extra year over and above the finance term because energy projects tend to have a life that goes way beyond the financing term. Rather than exaggerating that too much, we just added 1 year. To determine which is a better decision, we would compare that to waiting for cash for next year. And as you can see, we did nothing, so we get nothing, no change in year 1. We get the project installed, slightly higher cost. And as you can see here, we come up with a big negative cash flow number in year 1. But that's okay because we're capturing 100% of the savings in all the years beyond that. So to determine which is a better financial decision, do it now or wait until later, we take the net present value of these 2 numbers. And as you can see here, and I won't shrink it down, but financing generates 1.9, almost $2 million worth of net positive cash flow versus $1.2 million of net positive cash flow by paying no interest and deferring the installation for a year. So if we were to ask you which is a better financial decision, to me it's very clear that if you were to finance it at the interest rate that's stated here, that is a much better financial decision. In this case, we would be generating 62% more cash than if we were to wait for a future budget to kick in order to do the implementation. Now this is important, and it's a little counterintuitive. I know many of you on the call today have plans that go out over a period of years. what we're going to do this year, what we're going to do next year, and the year after that, and they're all funded out of your internal capital budget. So the takeaway from this particular sheet should be, wow, maybe we should do more of these projects today and finance them, because the net effect to the facility is a greater cash flow improvement. And to me, positive cash flow is a key driver when looking at any of these energy efficiency projects. Whatever creates the most cash flow positive result is the best deal. Let's take a quick look at comparing interest rates. As I had mentioned earlier, lower interest rate means you pay less money per month. Higher interest rate, you pay more money. But until you roll the energy inefficiencies caused by the delay and waiting for the implementation of that project into the formula, into the calculation, you don't really know which is a better deal. Well, here we're comparing two different interest rates, 4%. Let's assume I can get it at 3%. The cost of the equipment. We come up with a lower interest rate savings number, and that is basically the net present value of the monthly payments of a loan at 4% versus 3%. So if we can get the cheaper loan, that's equal to $360,000 more for our organization. So I'm going to put that into a bucket over here. And on our very first tab, remember we calculated the energy savings on this particular project? Now we're just doing a simple linear calculation here, assuming that the savings are the same throughout the months. So we're going to deduct that monthly savings from the pot of dollar benefit. And the question now becomes, how long do I wait before the lower interest rate costs me more dollars? And in this case, 4.4 months. If you wait more than 4.4 months for the lower interest rate, you're better off taking a higher interest rate and doing it sooner. That's another counterintuitive conclusion. The summary page here will generate a report of everything that you've put into the tool before that. Important to point out that if I were to go back, for example, to the cash flow sheet and for to look at just printing out that one page, you can see here, hopefully you can see, that I can just print that one page and I don't have to print out the whole report if that's the part that I want to bring to the decision-making team within our organization. So where do you find it? Go to the EnergyStar.gov website, financial resources, click on that button. That will bring you to the next page here, and as you can see, we've got the cash flow opportunity calculator, which is the third label underneath that, and there's some supporting documentation that goes along with it, which is the introduction to the spreadsheet, and look inside the cash flow calculator, which details the methodology and calculations the way we did it. And with that, I end today's presentation. We'll open it up for any questions.
Thanks so much, Neil. This is David. You have one question from Chris asking, can estimated energy cost change be negative?
The answer is yes. That's actually a good question. You can put in negative numbers. It still works the same. The bottom line, however, when you put in negative numbers, is that you just change the simple payback. But conceptually, the benefit of doing it now versus doing it later stays the same. Curiously enough, the spread between those two numbers, those two net present value numbers, will stay the same regardless of the finance term, whether it be 5, 10 years, 12 years, etc. So if you were to play with it, that would be the takeaway for making that modification. But yes, you can put negative numbers in.
Thanks very much, Neil. I think that's our only question from the field, unless any of the other panelists have their own questions or comments to add in. Well, seeing none, thank you again, Neil. And I have myself just a wee bit more material to share with all of you before we conclude at 4 o'clock for today. It's really been a pleasure to listen to everything, Laura and Cadret, Neil, that you've had to share. I've certainly learned a lot. And we at the Environmental Finance Center consider ourselves very fortunate to have the good collaboration we do with the EPA and with great contracting firms like Cadmus and Catalyst that work with the EPA. As far as the Environmental Finance Center goes, we want to make you aware of the existence of our blog. You can see the address for it on the left side of your screen here. And you're always welcome to sign up for that to learn more about energy and water and the nexus between them and financing of other environmental areas as well. Again, the Small Systems Project is continuing, the Small Drinking Water Systems Project, and if you are a system that serves 10,000 or fewer people, you are a small system and you're eligible to go to the website and request free direct technical assistance from us under any of the 7 grant areas, whether it be asset management or water loss or energy management and so on. And finally, our colleagues at the Environmental Finance Center at Boise State University in Idaho have developed a tool that you may find interesting and useful. They call it HydroDash. It is a kind of dashboard that allows you just for one utility at a time to put in some financial information about your rates and finances and get some good metrics back. We also want to give you the opportunity before we sign off with you today that if you are interested in being added to the Environmental Finance Center here at UNC to our blog, you can respond to this polling question right now by voting yes. And I'll give anyone who's interested in doing that a few moments to fill that out. All we do with that information is to add you to our blog, basically. And you're certainly not going to be overwhelmed with a ton of emails. We tend to put up about a couple blog entries a week about environmental finance. Okay, we've had a few people sign up for that now, and so thank you for doing that. We will certainly add you to the blog rolls. I do want to say what a pleasure it's been spending the last hour and a half with you this afternoon, everybody. In addition to everything else, there is the survey. So for anyone who is on the call and wants to fill out the survey right now, I'm going to put the link through to your questions box, your chat box right now. And you should be seeing that, and it's a live link, so you can click on it and start filling it out right now if you like. If now is not a good time, we will email it to you later today as well, so you can do it sometime in the next day or so. Thanks again to Kudret Utabe and Laura Dufresne of the Cadmus Group, to Neil Zobler of the Catalyst Financial Group, and to our colleague Katie at the US EPA. Thank you to all of you for tuning in today. We hope this has been a valuable experience for you, and we'll see you next time. Take care.